Hey everyone. So, it's late 2025, and I've got a phone here that, believe it or not, is turning 4 years old. This is the iPhone 13, and the big question is, does this thing still make any sense to buy, or even just to keep using? Today, we're going to figure that out. We'll cover pretty much everything you need to know, how it feels today, the performance on the brand new iOS 26, the camera, the battery, and yeah, we'll talk about the whole Apple Intelligence thing. So if you're thinking about upgrading to this phone, or maybe upgrading from it, stick around. I think this will really help. So for full disclosure, this is my iPhone 13 mini in the product red color, which I still think looks fantastic. This isn't my main daily driver, but it's with me a lot because it's so compact. It's become my go-to for quick one-handed stuff, firing off a quick photo, replying to a message, or just scrolling when I don't want to use a bigger phone. My battery health is currently sitting at a pretty healthy 91%, and it's running the official version of iOS 26 that came out about a month ago. And just to be clear, while I have the mini, everything I'm about to say, performance, cameras, software, it all applies to the regular 6.1-inch iPhone 13 too. The only real differences are the screen size and crucially the battery life, and we'll definitely get into that. Before we get into how it holds up, now I think it's important to remember what made this phone so special back in 2021. It wasn't just a minor spec bump. The reason we're even talking about this phone so seriously 4 years later is because Apple packed it with foundational upgrades that have allowed it to age incredibly gracefully. The iPhone 13 brought in the largest sensor ever in a dual-camera iPhone at the time. It gathered almost 50% more light, which was a huge deal for low-light photos. It also got sensor shift stabilization, a feature that was previously only on the 12 Pro Max, so you were getting pro-level camera hardware in a standard model. It also had the A15 Bionic chip, which was, and honestly still is, an absolute powerhouse. And Apple finally made the notch a little smaller, and the screen a lot brighter for outdoor use. These were meaningful, tangible upgrades that really set a strong foundation. Subsequent standard models like the 14 offered more iterative changes, which has really cemented the 13's place as a benchmark for value. Okay, so in the hand, the design with these flat aluminum edges still feels incredibly premium. It's a classic look that Apple has stuck with for a reason. The ceramic shield front has also held up really well against scratches for me. The screen itself, this Super Retina XDR display, is still beautiful. Colors are punchy, it gets plenty bright for outdoor use, and content looks super sharp. But we have to talk about the refresh rate. It's a 60 Hz display. If you're coming from an older iPhone like an 11 or 10R, you won't notice a thing. But if you've used a Pro iPhone with a 120 Hz ProMotion display, yeah, you can feel that it's not quite as fluid when you're scrolling. For most people, I don't think it's a deal breaker, but it is one of the clearest signs of this phone's age. Now for performance, this is where things get interesting. I'm running the latest iOS 26, and for my day-to-day stuff, opening apps, swiping around, browsing, this phone is still buttery smooth. The A15 chip is no joke. I actually ran a Geekbench 6 test and it scored 2,329 on single-core and 5,652 on multi-core. To put that in perspective, that's still competitive with many brand new mid-range phones today and shows just how capable this chip remains. It handles pretty much anything you throw at it. And I have to talk about the new look of iOS 26, this liquid glass design. I know it's been a bit controversial online, with some people finding it buggy or slow, especially on older devices. And yeah, when I first updated, the phone did get a little warm for a day or so, which is pretty normal as it re-indexes all your files. But since then, it's been totally fine for me. Personally, I really like the new design. The animations and glassy effects feel super modern, and it's funny seeing some Android competitors already starting to adopt a similar look. I think Apple just set a new UI trend, for better or worse. But there is one major thing you have to consider, and that's RAM. The iPhone 13 and 13 mini both have 4 GB of RAM, and look, for most single tasks, that's fine. But in 2025, with more demanding apps and this new graphically intensive iOS 26, you feel it. The new software's visual demands are hitting the hardware's ceiling. I've noticed my apps reloading from scratch a lot more often. Like I'll be browsing in Safari, switch over to reply to a message and some other apps, and when I need to come back to Safari, Safari has to reload the entire page. Though it reloads fast, of course. It's a small thing, but it can get annoying, and it's a common complaint I've seen online from other users on 4 gigs devices running iOS 26. I also use newer iPhones with 6, 8, even 12 gigs of RAM, and the difference in multitasking is night and day. On those phones, apps just stay open in the background, ready to go. So if you're a heavy multitasker, someone who is constantly jumping between lots of apps, This is probably the single biggest downside of the iPhone 13 today. It's a hardware limit that software can't really fix. For gaming, the A15 is still a beast. I've played some pretty demanding titles, and it's still very playable. You can run games like Warframe or Call of Duty smoothly, though you might need to stick to medium settings for the best frame rates. It does get pretty warm after a long session, but that's kind of expected for a compact phone packing this much power. Okay, let's talk battery. This is where the Mini and the regular 13 really go their separate ways. My Mini, at 91% health, gets me through a day of light to moderate use, but just barely. If I were using this as my only phone, I'd definitely have some battery anxiety, and that matches what I've seen from people online. A lot of 13 mini users say they carry a MagSafe battery pack just for peace of mind, especially if they're taking lots of photos or using maps. It's the price you pay for this amazing compact size. The regular iPhone 13, though, that's a different story. It has a much bigger battery, and it was known for its great endurance when it launched. Even today, a healthy one should easily get the average person through a full day without any issues. So the choice is simple. If you want a small phone and can manage the battery, the Mini is unique. For everyone else, the regular 13 is the much safer bet. Now the cameras. In good light, the iPhone 13 still takes fantastic photos. They're sharp, the colors are great, and for posting on social media, they are more than good enough. The video is also excellent, and you still have features like cinematic mode, which was a flagship feature back then. But you can see its age when you compare it to newer phones like the iPhone 15, 16, or even 17. Those phones have 48 megapixel main sensors, which means you can crop in and still get a detailed shot. With the 13's 12 megapixel camera, you don't have that flexibility. And there's no telephoto lens, so any zooming you do is purely digital, and the quality drops off pretty fast. It's a great point-and-shoot camera, but it lacks the versatility of the newer systems. One of the best things about owning an iPhone is the software support, and the 13 is expected to get iOS updates for at least a few more years, likely until 2027 or 2028, so it's still very secure and up-to-date. However, it does not support Apple Intelligence. All the new AI features Apple is building into iOS are only for the iPhone 15 Pro and newer. But honestly, for me, this is not a deal breaker at all, and here's why. Apple Intelligence is still really new. You could almost say it's in a public beta phase, and it's sometimes far behind competitors like Samsung or Pixel. Right now, I find myself using alternatives like ChatGPT or Gemini way more often because frankly, they're more powerful and mature, and you can use those on any phone. So you're not really missing out on the best AI tools just by having an iPhone 13. So, what's the final verdict? The iPhone 13 in late 2025 has aged incredibly well. It's a true decent iPhone after 4 years. It still feels premium, the performance is surprisingly strong, and it delivers a fantastic core iPhone experience. So, who should buy it? I think it breaks down into 3 groups. First, if you're upgrading from an iPhone XR, an 11, or any older, absolutely. This will feel like a massive upgrade. The OLED screen, the speed, the camera, everything will be a huge step up. It's a fantastic choice. Second, if you're using an iPhone 13 right now, honestly, I'd say hold on to it, unless your battery is completely shot or you need promotion on the base model, and much better camera, I think, and recommend you jump to 17. The jump in day-to-day experience just big enough to justify the price, but other than that, save your money. And finally, for the value seeker, this is the sweet spot. The used price, the iPhone 13 is probably the best value iPhone you can buy today. It gives you a truly premium experience for a fraction of the cost of a new phone. It is the undisputed king of value. But that's just my experience. I'd love to hear from you, especially if you're still rocking an iPhone 13 or 13 mini. How's it holding up for you? What's your battery health like? Let me know down in the comments. As always, thank you so much for watching. If this video was helpful, giving it a thumbs up really helps the channel out, and consider subscribing for more reviews like this one. I'll see you in the next one.